Hello, Proxy Table Gaming fans. PTG, I am Hyper G, of course. And I've got a very, very special guest with me. I don't know if you...
Very special guest.
Do you count as a guest anymore, or are you just part of the furniture, you know?
I'm a fixture, yeah. I'm like the wallpaper that you inherited from the previous occupants. And
Absolutely.
you really have the heart or the effort to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, it's slightly peeling at the edges as well. So, yeah. It's Skabfatt, everybody.
Oh, hey!
And you are here with me for quite possibly the most exciting video that I have ever recorded on PTG, because it's the army that I probably love the most, and it's their book review, or at least the start of it, on day one. Hype train. Can you believe it? So
yes, this is hot off the press, isn't it?
It is. It's so hot off the press that it isn't even out to the public yet. And thank you to those people involved in the decision making that have sent it out to the content makers. I probably should have had some sort of speech prepared to say thank you to them all. But hey ho, I haven't prepared anything. Sadler in particular has done a great job at keeping the content providers up to date. But in terms of everyone else involved in writing the book, I have no idea who they are. So I'm not even going to pretend to thank them, but thank you to all those people. But yeah, this is hype on day one of the build-up to the Saurian Ancients book release. Do not worry by the fact that the book says 24th of March 2022 on it. That is clearly a date meant to fox us all, because it is not going to be released 5 months ago. It will, I believe, the release date is the 1st of September, coming up, not too far away now. And yeah, as I say, this is the hype train, ready to go. And yeah,
I'm ready to look at a book that I know very little about, and compare it to a book that I'll know relatively little about.
No worries. Well, that's fine, because I mean that makes you an expert as far as I'm concerned, because none of us are experts on this book. So yeah.
I've heard it on good authority that this book is actually secretly jam-packed full of goblins. So I will be exclusively rating the quality of this book based on that little tidbit of information.
Excellent. I think you're more than qualified by that status. So yeah, love it. I should say as well that a couple of housekeeping rules. This setup that we've got, you can see on your screen, is created by yours truly, Hyper G. It is in absence of Lucky Sixes, who's on holiday at this very inopportune moment when the Saurian Ancients book is coming. So yeah, any technical issues or audio, things that aren't quite as good as they normally would be, blame Lucky Sixes for going on holiday, because it is his fault. And I'm not to be blamed, because I've just drummed this up out of my minimum knowledge of stuff. So yeah. Anyway, with all that said, I'm sure they don't want to hear us rambling on, or me on. They probably could listen to you all day, but certainly not me. So shall we scroll down in the Saurian Ancients book at the beginning, because we've been authorized to show the beginning of the book on day one.
Let's begin.
Yeah, and I'm going to scroll down to the very first thing, and you said to me when you first saw this, we're going to ignore the contents page, because
a beautiful content.
Well, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, you can read. I'll pause just ever slightly while I'm scrolling down, because you can read into that a little bit about what's to come. I'll move on to, first of all, to the army-specific rules. So ignore. Yeah, you said to me when you first saw it, this book comes out swinging. Quote Skabfatt.
Yes, so circa 2022. So I've only just started to figure out what the SA Army does, right? And I know a lot of the labs have kind of taken some of the core principles of the armies and kind of rephrased them. And there's been some really, really interesting changes across, like the Dread Elves and the Vermin Swarm and so on. Was not expecting this.
No gods, no kings, no generals.
No gods. Yes. No generals, no killing the general bonuses. This is the surprise haymaker.
Absolutely.
Right out the gate.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I've done very well to avoid rumours. Vicious rumours, some would say. about what was going to be included in this book. So
Yeah.
maybe this one did the rounds and I just didn't hear it, but I didn't expect this. And wow.
I think I was taken more aback than perhaps I might have done, because the one tidbit I'd heard from the lab is that the team, and you're very sneaky SA lab team, you said that coatls will not be generals anymore.
Yes.
We're going to move away from coatl generals, and there was a few kind of raised eyebrows. But you haven't lied.
No. Absolutely. They've really twisted that, haven't they? They must have, said that, then muted their mics and gone tee at the end of that, really, But let's read it out. No gods, no kings. Saurian, I mean, we've only really talked about the second half of this sentence, by the way. But Saurian ancient armies do not have to contain at least one character. And they cannot name any character the general. So go back to the first part of that sentence. You can have a no character Saurian ancient army. So not even just no general, but you don't even have to take a single character.
Yeah, you can live your best Jurassic World life.
You really can.
Just have an army of dinos. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is.
I mean, well, whilst we were discussing this, like, there's a lot of hidden implications behind.
Yeah, you've already mentioned one that I didn't realise straight away. I mean, you probably mentioned it right from the off, but I only realised it when Gobbo mentioned it in our chat, which is you cannot get the 200-point victory point bonus for killing the general anymore.
Yeah,
because there isn't a general. Simple as that, and that's a real bonus for SA players, really.
Yeah, I mean, because you can still have that, expensive. You can still have an expensive caster character or a whoppy boppy stab and choppy character, but doesn't give up the extra 200 points. And our Lord and Savior King Skabfatt, one of his it's never happened. He's never fallen in battle. But if he were to, those 200 victory points can tip. Yeah, can tip a result.
Sure, I'm going to let that go. Just because of time and people aren't here to witness us arguing about the fate of Skabfatt under the Temple Guard's boots. But hey, right, let's move on, because this is a hype train and people don't want to hear us talking about unrelated matters. So yeah, we'll move on to the next part of the book. Okay, so let's get into the army model rules. Universal rules. That shows how little I've paid attention to the format of these books. I don't remember ever saying universal rules there before, but apparently it does. So, the word that I always say wrong, and have been pulled up on it, chameleon.
Chameleon?
Not chameleon. So, chameleon is a rule in itself in the book. But I need to say, first of all, do not panic, good friends. There are not many units or ways that this rule can be taken. This is basically for one unit entry, basically, which is your skink, skirmisher, special guerrilla choices, basically.
It's the chameleon special rule for the chameleon.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So don't go thinking, why is it a universal rule? Is every unit going to be able to take this? Don't panic. Because obviously, if you're an SA general and you're thinking, oh, great, my whole army can have this rule, then you're dancing on the ceiling. If you're not an SA general, you're thinking, wow, this is overpowered already if everything can take this, or whatnot. So, yeah, this is just, I mean, obviously, I don't want to spoil too much about the rest of the book anyway, because that's not our job on this day one hype. But, yeah, I just want to, throw that in there to make people not throw things at the screen and turn off. Also, reading the rule, the model gains ambush, hard target 1, and scout. I will say the unit that can take this is not scoring. So do not think you are going to have another army with scoring ambush units, and breakthrough is yet another difficult army. Saurians, no. The units that can take this are not scoring. So they're just ambushing for the sake of being tricksy, not for the sake of winning objectives. Thoughts on this?
I mean, it's about as ambitious as warm seawater, isn't it? We know that there were like chameleon-like skinks in the old book, and I'm guessing from this that they're in the new book.
Yep.
So it's good to be able to just say they're chameleon, and it does this. Boom.
Exactly. And part of the reason why I think they've got their own rule is because the chameleon option in the army has option of not being chameleons, which gives them other kind of skinky rules.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
It's pretty cool. But I mean, we're not talking about those in this video. So yes. So let's talk about another chunky one. And I mean, this is you got to get your brain on. But what
this is a girthy rule.
Yeah, it is. I mean, hopefully that shows properly, or at least most of it. It's called Combined Strength X. So let me scroll down so we can get all of it in. There you go. It's just about all in.
The daycare center rule.
That would work too. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to read this out, right? So we've got it, or at least, I think I'll have to read it out. At step 8 of the pre-game sequence, after spell selection. So this is after you've set up your army. You can change it every single battle. Each unit with combined strength may be merged with from one of the unit entries in brackets, forming a single unit called a compound unit. No unit can be merged with more than one other unit. In this context, the unit with combined strength is referred to as guest unit, and its models as guest models. And the unit it is merged with is referred to as host unit, and its models as host models. Okay, so the models that are joining another model are guests. The one that they join is the host. That's simple enough. And you do that at spell selection time.
We have a specific term for any units that have different types of models from different types of units. Compound unit.
Yeah, and the reason for this is that you're not just talking Caimans and Skinks anymore. That's why it's appearing so early in the book, because you're talking lots of different types of units combining with other units. Because SA generals will be familiar with this for Caimans and Skinks, as will opponents. Now you're talking lots of different combos. So it's clearly a theme for this book, which is really cool. Really cool. And now we get into the nitty-gritty. So guest models lose any champion upgrade and banner enhancement until the end of the game. So don't pay for them, basically, is what it's saying. So on your guests, don't pay for them. And while part of a compound unit, they gain fight and extra rank. This is a curious one. And interestingly, what you have to do in order to understand this, I found, is it's only talking about the guest models. The host models do not get fight and extra rank. Only the guest models. And remember that. So effectively, the guest models are the ones that can fight from an additional supporting rank, not the host models. Okay? Guest models, still on guest models, follow the rules for matching bases, see front rank, with the exception that infantry guest models do not have to be placed as far forward as possible, while non-infantry guest models must always be placed in the first rank, possibly pushing back other models with front rank. So, yeah. I mean,
so
go on.
This is very, very similar to the Caimans being in the second rank, the unit of Skinks. But for anything else you've got of more kind of war platform, light kind of role where they have to be up front. That makes sense.
Exactly. And, obviously we're not spoiling a lot of the book because the hype is building. But yes, the only models that can join units to form compound units in the book that are not infantry, or that are infantry, are the Caimans. The other types of models that can join are not infantry. So most units that combine to make a compound unit will be in the front rank. Only Caimans won't be, basically. Okay, so let's carry on. The original units of a compound unit are treated separately for the purpose of victory points. So you can't, you can only kill one or the other, or both, or neither.
Or both, yeah.
Yeah, you can't kill just Skinks and get the points for the Caimans, basically. For all other purposes, each compound unit is treated as a single unit. For all other purposes. So I had to read that a few times and think to myself, well, can my guest units charge out of my host unit? No, they cannot, because they are a single unit. So host,
and because you'd be in trouble as a daycare center worker if you let your charges run amok.
That is true. Host and guest models in the same unit do not share a common health pool, even though they are all rank and file models of the same unit. That's fine. Each group has their own health pool. Lost health points are never passed between the health pools, and any excess health points or losses are ignored. Guest models are not forced to choose the same close combat weapon in close combat as the host models in their compound unit. That's all the same as it was with Kaiman and Skinks, so I don't think we need to really dwell on that too much. Distributing hits is different. Previously, it used to be you used to roll to hit and then randomize the hits between Skinks and Kaimans. Now, of course, you've got different units that are in compound units, so they've simplified it, I think. For the purpose of distributing hits onto a compound unit, guest models are considered as characters with a different type height combination that all share the same health pool. So yeah, this is basically you can put one hit on your guest models, each guest model, like you would characters, but they can only take one each, if that makes sense. Like you would a character. Yeah. Like if you were shooting a bolt thrower with a higher strength on the first hit, then you would choose the guest model to take the big hit before you put a hit on a skink, for example. And that's how it's working. Instead of rolling your hits and then randomizing which hit hits who. So I think the fact that they've added it in to be like a character in a unit is actually quite good, because if you've got the hang of that, you're okay with this.
Yeah. Again, it's there may, like, I haven't got the brain power to think whether that generates more or less jank, but from an opponent's perspective, saying it's just like shooting at a character in a unit.
Yeah, great.
That's fine. Makes it easy to say.
Exactly. Now, this is one that is, I'm going to say now, allocating attacks. This is essentially the same as it was, right? Okay. So I'm not actually going to try and explain this because they've changed the wording. But in my mind, it's exactly the same as it used to be. But they've changed the wording. I'm not entirely sure the new wording is actually easier to understand, which is why I'm not going to explain it. You might think differently after this, so right. Swirling melee cannot be used against compound units. Otherwise, close combat attacks can be allocated as normal towards different health pools in base contact. Alternatively, rank and file models that could allocate close combat attacks towards any model in the compound unit, and rank and file models that could not allocate close combat attacks due to models in duels, may instead choose to allocate close combat attacks towards one of the following: the health pool of the non-champion host models, the health pool of the guest models. These close combat attacks suffer -1 to hit unless one or more guest models are in base contact with the attacker.
Whew. Right. Okay. So,
any comments?
TLDR, you choose whether you're attacking the little ones or the big ones.
Precisely that. And if you can't attack,
if you swing at the big ones and they're in the second rank, like Kaiman's, -1 to hit.
Yep. But anything else, because it's not going to be Kaiman, it'll be in the front rank, so you don't have a -1 to hit.
Correct. Yeah.
You're there, and I'm not going to spend any more time explaining that because essentially it's the same as it was, except now you've got other units which aren't Kaiman's, but they just get hit as normal. So,
begging my pardon for my ignorance, were Kaiman's like a unit upgrade in the past?
They were,
but now there is like an actual. Okay, so now they're an actual unit that's just airdropped.
Yes,
presumably among Skinks.
Yeah, or other units. Not always Skinks and Kaimans now, of course. Sure. So yeah. Okay, so we're good there.
Ooh,
but it's not. It's nice that it's at the front of the book and it's a theme. So very very cool. I think.
I mean, this alone is gonna give SA armies a lot of kind of unique identity. Having these kind of mishmash units, and I think there's going to be, like, without talking about the rest of the book, I reckon there's going to be some pretty good combos of like host and guest units to help to keep things fresh for you as a player and to keep your opponent on their toes.
Yeah, and I should say that a lot of the units in the book have only 1 or 2 options for the host models that they can go with. So don't think you're going to be choosing, oh, I'll take a unit of, let's say, salamanders, which is one unit that you can actually put in another. Spoiler.
Okay.
And they've got a list of like 10 different units they can go in. Not true. Most things that can choose to go in another unit have got 1 or 2 options, as opposed to 3 or 4. So, it's all quite specific. And when you use these rules to work out where they go, it will all make sense. So I think this is a really cool little addition. And it'll give you a lot of fun in list building without hopefully vexing the enemy too much when you try and explain to them what they can attack and what they can't, which I think is the main point of this rule.
Yeah.
So I think that this paragraph, or series of paragraphs, is actually a lot more complicated than it actually is, but they have to say it for all the loopholes.
Yeah, so to cover all angles. But yeah, the explain it like I'm 5.
Yeah.
It'll be a 1-line sentence that you can say across the table.
That's it. And just go back to the fight an extra rank part. That means your Kaimans can be in rank 3 as opposed to in rank 2, which I think they could. I'm not sure what they used to be like, but anyway, we won't worry about that because it's now what it is rather than what it used to be. Okay, cool. Let's move on, shall we? Because that is a chunky one to get through. We'll move on to the next page. Okay, so Communal Bond. Now, this is as important, if not more important, than compound units, etc. Because units with more than half of their models with Communal Bond are subject to the following rules. We should probably pick these through bit by bit, actually. So let me say to begin with that every unit in the book has Communal Bond, except for the mount options. So you're talking all characters and all units in the book have Communal Bond. So once you've understood that, you can start really understanding the rest of it. So the first bullet point, they gain swift reform. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, why do they need that there if they're all just taking musicians as normal? The answer is every unit is now getting a free musician. You do not have to pay 10 points for a musician because they all get it.
There are many things that I abide in my fantasy experience, but dinosaurs playing instruments, that's too far.
Fair enough.
It's gone.
Right, it's gone. It's gone. And depending on how many musicians SA Generals used to take, they're now all free. So, or to be factored into the unit cost, maybe. So.
Yeah, I mean, you lose the march into the beat, but in the grand scheme of things, who actually remembers that?
True. Although there is a particular model later in the book that actually has got March to the Beat, but we are not in any way getting to that now or anytime soon. So we'll see in the future. So yeah, that's fine for the first point. Second point, their discipline tests are subject to minimized roll while within range of a friendly model's commanding presence. There's a few pits to this. And
I can hear the screeching from the Vermin Swarm forums.
Absolutely, and not only that, but let's also take a moment to realise for the first time in our review, where's Cold-Blooded?
Yeah,
Cold-Blooded is not there earlier in the book, and that was usually the number one thing for Saurians. So this is basically what Cold-Blooded has become.
Yeah.
And it takes a bit of unpacking. So their discipline tests are subject to minimized roll. Well, that's Cold-Blooded right there. While within range of a friendly model's commanding presence. Okay, now hang on.
Hyper G.
Yeah.
We are distinctly missing some commanding presence, are we not?
We are, because we don't have a general, and the only model with commanding presence is a general. Don't be confused in thinking that characters in units have commanding presence. No, they do not. Characters bestow their discipline upon a unit they have joined. That does not mean they have commanding presence. So how on earth do we get our minimized rolls while within range of a friendly model's commanding presence if we don't have a general and characters aren't bestowing it?
This is a conundrum for the ages,
isn't it?
Scholars will spend years figuring this out.
Yes, except we're going to reveal the answer in the next bullet point. Because, and we'll probably go back to the first part of this in a second, rank and file models with scoring and rank and file models in compound units, and we know what compound units are now because of the previous discussion, they gain commanding presence. with the following rules and restrictions. Its range is set to 8 inches, and the models may choose to set their discipline to the highest discipline value available in the unit for the purpose of this instance of commanding presence. Right. So there's our answer. That's where commanding presence is. It's on your units now, not from your general. Which units? Well, scoring units. Well, that's easy enough to understand. You know, your basic, your usual ranked up infantry or your ranked up cavalry or, the normal kind of units that you'd expect, Caimans, etc. However, there's also this little ditty and ranking file models in compound units. And compound units are the ones that we talked about a minute ago, the ones that are combined with others. So
compound units are here to stay.
Oh, they are. And yeah, the thing to remember about this is compound units don't always combine in either host or guest. They don't always combine in scoring units. So you can have non-scoring compound units with commanding presence.
Yeah.
And they are each giving out an 8 inches commanding presence discipline bubble and, see previous bullet point, minimize discipline rolls.
So it is it's relatively similar to the Vermin Swarm Eagle standards.
Yeah, it's of the similar
a bit more kind of a bit more forgiving in a sense. This isn't promoting strict kind of battle lines like Vermin Swarm does. You can have blocks of warriors in the middle giving out bubbles around them, but you could have fast compound units on your flanks and then they're giving bubbles on your flank. It's just make things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and I was worried about your little skink units that are running off to the flanks and don't have cold-blooded anymore. But effectively what you need to do is you just need to make your skink units either near to a compound unit or a compound unit, and then they'll have their own commanding presence bubble. Admittedly, that commanding presence bubble may not be any use if it's on their own discipline anyway, but at least it will make them minimized, which obviously is the real thing of cold-blooded.
And I mean, so whilst the first rule, no gods, no kings, says you don't have to take characters, I mean, this is a reason why you might want to take some characters and chuck them in your units to gain access to a higher discipline, which is then pumped out through Communal Bond. Also, depending on the character, give them a bit more punch or a bit more zap. But so there is still reasons to take a character.
Absolutely.
Selection.
Yeah, because some units actually have had their disciplines reduced. We actually will have a core section review coming up in the hype train. But I'm not going to spoil too many things for other videos, so you'll have to see what disciplines get changed as other content providers give their reviews. So shall we move on to another really cool rule, Enclave Wizard. Let me scroll down ever so slightly, not that I need to. There we go. Give it its proper prominence. So yeah, Enclave Wizard. This is a new one, isn't it? Not to be confused with Conclave Wizard.
Yeah.
Do you want to read this one?
So Enclave Wizard X. The champion is a wizard adept with the following additional rules. The model gains +1 hit point up to a maximum of 3. The model selects a number of spells given in the unit entry from the predetermined spells also given in the unit entry. This overrides the spell selection rules for wizard adepts. And if applicable, the model's base size is changed to the base size stated in the brackets X.
Right.
So it's a bit like Conclave.
It's a bit like that.
But slightly different. And it's primarily the choice, right? You get a number of spells, whereas generally speaking, Conclaves tend to just have the one, maybe 2.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, depending on what unit this Enclave Wizard is being taken on, you can have one choice of spell, so you get one spell, or you can have a choice of one out of a few. There's a few different units that can have Enclave Wizards. So the second part of this, the second bullet point, the model selects a number of spells given in the unit entry. All depends what unit you're taking. And there's a lot of options for these Enclave Wizards.
I've cheekily scanned ahead, and I mean, if nothing else, like from a hobby modeling perspective, the whole base size bit, that's tickled my pickle.
Yeah.
Like thinking about how some Enclave Wizards get represented in the unit. That's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to delve too much into the character section because that's another content provider doing that. But there is one particular character which the models will probably now only be used as Enclave Wizards. I say no more because I don't want to get too political. But yeah, so let's go back to the model gains +1 health point. Now, up to a maximum of 3. That's cool because that's a champion thing or a Conclave Wizard thing. But I should say that even Caimans can become Enclave Wizard, and they have 3 HP. So there is possible that they won't get the extra HP, you know, because they've already got 3. So that's one thing to bear in mind if you are taking them on bigger models, is that if you are an Enclave Wizard and you've already got 3 HP, you can't get 4, for example. So there's that.
But you've now got a Cayman with spellcasting, so
yeah, exactly. So woohoo, right? Yeah, definitely. Although, you know, keep in mind that if you're putting a Cayman in a compound unit, they lose the champion. So it's only going to be a Cayman not in a compound unit that is an Enclave Wizard.
Okay.
So yeah, because it's always linked to the champion, this Enclave Wizard rule. And obviously, like I say, you will lose that if you go into a compound unit. And they're the sorts of things that really you just need to work out either in the middle of a battle, preferably not, or as you read in the book.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it. One thing that was immediately pointed out by myself and Lucky Sixes when we were first going through this is, oh my gosh, we got Wizard Adept spam. And of course, a Wizard Adept comes with a channel. So are you talking channel spam here? My answer to that is potentially.
Yeah, I think as befits his name, Lucky Sixes immediately figured out how to get 6 channels.
Yeah, it's not going to be difficult, is your answer to that.
Hard.
No, it's not going to be difficult. But yeah, we'll have to see what people come up with in list selection. You know, will that actually be a good spam, or will it prove too expensive points-wise? Because these Enclave Wizards, they're not cheap. You know, they actually cost some few points. So yeah, it'll all depend about list selection and choice. We'll see. Right, Pack Hunter. Let's move down to Pack Hunter, shall we? So in the charge phase, units with more than half of their models with Pack Hunter may re-roll failed charge range rolls if their charge is part of a combined charge. Now, I deliberately went straight to the rulebook and looked up combined charge just to make sure that there was a rule for it and that there was no confusion. So that's quite important for this rule, because if you don't have a combined charge, you don't get the reroll. And a combined charge is defined as when 2 units are charging 1.
Yes.
So you have to have 2 of yours charging the same enemy unit for it to be a combined charge.
Yeah.
Not.
I mean, I look at this and think of it as a lizard and his dog.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're charging into the same unit, then the ones with Pack Hunter can re-roll the charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, of course, you don't have to have both units with Pack Hunter in order to re-roll, but only the Pack Hunter will re-roll. Yeah. And I think that's fine, you know.
I mean, without like taking an educated guess, I'm guessing it's the potentially faster, more kind of animalistic unit on this that's probably off to the side a bit more. But to Pack Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. The more feral ones, really, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's tough to talk about that rule without really talking about the units that it's on. So I don't think we necessarily need to go into it any more than that at this stage.
I think it's just easy. Yeah. One unit is Chris Pratt, and the other unit is his Velociraptors.
Blue, is it? Not Bluey.
Blue and Co. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Okay, so let's talk Praesent then. And this is a weird one because it's kind of mentioned a few times in the opening sections in different places. But basically, this is your Ramphadon rule, or what used to be on the Ramphadons. You used to select 2 units that the Ramphadons would go mental attacking, basically. But now, certain units from this army book have the ability to mark enemy units with Praesent. If a unit is marked, place a scent marker next to the unit. A unit is considered marked if at least one model in the unit is marked by a scent marker. A character leaving a unit affected by a scent marker is no longer affected, unless the character was a single model unit when it gained the scent marker. In that case, the character keeps the scent marker. Marking a unit more than once does not offer any additional benefits. I don't really think that needs to be really picked apart that much, because it's kind of what it used to be, only a little bit more clarified for characters. I.e., you can only get it on the character if they were deployed separately.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that and I think of the Angry Frog rule from the Ramphadons. Like that just makes it makes sense.
That's what it is, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. There will be a further rule which we'll actually get to within this review, which further explains Praesent as well. We'll get to it in a second. Do you want to go for Solitary?
Solitary. You have no friends.
Yeah. Thanks.
The model may never join units or be joined by other characters. Wah, wah.
There you go. This is only one entry in the book, as far as I can tell on a quick glance.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say the name of it?
I think we'll let someone else do it. But oh boy, it's not going to matter that unit is solitary.
No, they'll be okay. Maybe
fine.
Maybe. Yeah, divided opinion on that one already. But let's not go there because it's not within the scope of this review. So yeah. Okay, on to attack attributes with lodestone, and this is another new named one.
Yeah.
And it's actually in 2 different parts, kind of, because it's close combat and shooting, but never the twain shall meet, because it's either one or the other. You don't have units that can use it in close combat and can shoot with it. So these bullet points are to be treated separately, even though it's one rule for different kinds of attacks. So attacks with lodestone are subject to the following rules when rolling to hit. Close combat attacks allocated towards a model with armor 3 or more gain +1 to hit. So armor 3 or more is 4 up to those in old money. So if you're attacking a, let's say, heavily armored, decent medium armored unit, then you get +1 to hit. That's quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
suck it, dwarves.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you don't get dwarves that are less than that, do you? Very often, especially as all of them auto take shields. But anyway. Yeah, and then we move on. Shooting attacks made against a unit with more than half its models with armor 3 or more gain +1 to hit. So, right. I need to say that this is actually the replacement to Born Predator.
Okay.
Because that's another one that kind of Saurians have got used to. Reroll 1s to hit.
Yeah.
And I think they may have kind of liked them. And if you look even further back to a game that we shan't talk about, you used to have a version of Battle Frenzy on Saurians where 6s got an extra hit or whatever. Born Predator's gone. This is now Born Predator, essentially. But instead of it only being on your dino-y Saurian models, dare I say, it's now actually only on your core Saurian warriors, if they were called that. They're not.
They're not.
No. So yeah, this close combat attack attribute lodestone is only on one unit in the book. Yeah. And so it basically means it's quite specific to if that unit is fighting someone with 4 up armor 3 or more, then they get +1 to hit. But do bear in mind, no Born Predator. So it's a trade-off. Is it better? Probably, because now you're hitting on one better instead of re-rolling and potentially, only re-rolling a very few dice rolls and maybe still missing. Now you're just getting that +1 to hit always.
+1. Yeah.
But it not always, though. because it's only against armor 3 up, armor 3.
I mean, there is a part of me that is kind of tickled by the fact that the dinosaurs can't blow a trumpet anymore, but they have discovered magnets.
Yeah, because effectively lodestone is on magnetic things. Yeah, because I mean that's a good way of moving into the shooting attack part actually, because the shooting attack part of this refers to a weapon that we'll get to in this review, because we're covered to cover it. In the armory, which is magnetic short bows, but let's not talk about them too early, because the shooting attacks, some shooting attacks in the book do have the lodestone rule, which means if they're shooting at models with 4 up armor or better, they get +1 to hit them. So Born Predator has really been twisted. It's like been wrung out like a sponge, and what's come out is some kind of Afro version of it, which I don't know whether people are going to like it or not. I'm not even going to bet one way or the other. But it's just a different rule, basically.
I mean, I have a feeling that I reckon this rule will be well received, apart from Dwarf, ID, and Warriors armies.
Yeah, anything with decent armor are not going to like it. Anything with no armor, couldn't care less.
Yeah, I couldn't give a toss about this rule with my goblins. So
and demons aren't going to care either, mostly. So
no.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Let's move into marking lure and predator senses, which both actually we could have done with talking about when we were talking about the prey scent thing.
Sure.
But for the sake of order, we're talking about them now. So marking lure. Units hit by 1 or more attacks with marking lure gain a scent marker until the end of the game. So we learned about scent markers in that you can put them on units. We don't know the effect of the scent marker yet, because that hasn't been told to us. But we know that you can put a scent marker on enemy units, and it'll do something. And there's also this shooting attack attribute, and it should be noted that it's a shooting attack attribute. So you can't attack something in close combat and put a marking lure on. This is something you're doing with a particular type of weapon or unit that can mark others. And from looking at the book, there's 2 different units, I think, no more than 2, that can actually take this marking lure as a shooting attack. So you're not talking too widespread, but I think it's still really cool.
It'll certainly be a choice, a bit like the Grey Wardens from the Highborn Elves book.
Like Fey Miasma, that sort of thing, But the knock-on effect is that it helps certain types of units. And let's talk about that, because Predator Senses is up next, which is a close combat attribute. And right before the battle, during step 7 of the deployment phase sequence, if your army list contains 1 or more models with this rule, you must mark a single unit from your opponent's army list with prey scent. In addition, in the melee phase, the model part must re-roll failed to hit rolls against models in units that are marked with prey scent. So
there it is.
Ramphadons are the best way of talking about them, although there are other models now with predator senses, interestingly. But first of all, we should say that you're only adding 1 prey scent token, no matter how many units you've got with predator senses. Ramphadons used to allow you to add 2 enemy units. This only allows you to add 1. If you have 10 units with predator senses, only 1 prey scent marker. But of course, reading above, you've got the marking lure to make extra scent markers. So really, you've got to combine the 2 things if you're picking a list that relies on this.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if you can get a unit with predator senses into combat with a unit that's prey scent marked, then you re-roll your hits. There is no plus D3 attacks anymore.
Bad news bears.
Yeah, but there, like I said, there is no more plus D3 hits. So, but you won't be too disappointed when you see Ramphadons. Don't worry too much. But we can't show them. So it's really hard to do an early day 1 tease. I do tease intentionally, but it's good. So, right, shall we move on to the armory, young Skabfatt?
We shall.
So we've already teased a little bit about that already, but there are some changes in here which I think are quite cool. So, blowpipe. First and foremost, Shooting weapon, of course. Range, 12 inches. That's not changed. Shots 2. That's not changed. Strength 2. AP 0. That's not changed. Poison attacks. That's not changed. Quick to fire. That's new. So,
oh boy.
In a world where everything is gaining quick to fire, blowing through a pipe was not quick to fire. Now it is. Thank the Lord. Or, sorry, no gods, no kings. Thank whoever is in charge. Yes.
Thank the massive dinosaur in that unit over there.
Yeah, exactly. But blowpipes have lost the +1 to hit against gigantic, or against towering presence, whatever it used to be. So there is that. But because you're quick to fire, you're actually getting +1 to hit against everything. Because,
Yeah.
So
those units are rarely going to be stood still.
Exactly. If you're standing still and shooting, then the enemies come to you, and you haven't moved to get out their arc or whatever, then the enemy probably hasn't placed themselves very well, or doesn't care.
And I guess in the grand scheme of things, the whole kind of towering presence, gigantic models, you were probably going for the poison attacks anyway, weren't you? Like you were
exactly
pushing for 6s, so +1 was kind of moot.
Exactly. Yeah. So hopefully this means that you're not even, going to be hitting on 7s with soft cover or whatnot, or hard target. But yeah, I think it's a cool addition, and it makes it a bit cleaner with blowpipes anyway. So and like I say, blowing through a pipe shouldn't actually take that long.
It's a weapon that you assumed would have it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So here's a new one, magnetic short bow. And this is your lodestone thing, isn't it? Which, you're not happy about this one, clearly.
No, I think it's hilarious. Like, clearly someone on the SA lab team has been playing a lot of like Minecraft or something, because this is the idea of magnetizing your arrows is just peak engineering.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, definitely. I mean, I hadn't thought about it like that, but fair enough. So 0 to 25 rank and file models with magnetic shortbow per army. So everything that's not a character is a ranking file model. Let's just clarify that. So you could have 25 in the rank and file and more outside of rank and file. So your characters with magnetic shortbows, because it's possible, do not count towards that limit, which is cool. But 25 isn't a lot, and
it's not going to be an offensive amount of homing arrows.
No, you're not talking about gun lines of magnetic shortbows, thankfully. But shortbows was kind of like lost in 9th Age. It disappeared. They became bows and longbows, and now shortbows back in this form, because its range is only 18. So you're not talking long range Saurians. You're still talking medium to short range now, because bows did come back, but bows are gone and replaced by this. So if you re-kitted out all your skinks to be with bows, don't worry, you can still field them. It's just you're using magnetic ones now.
And only 25 of them.
Yes. But it is shots 1, strength 3, AP 1. That's a little tricksy, isn't it? Tricksy.
Yeah.
And of course, because it's lodestone, if you're actually shooting at an armor 4 or 3 or better, so 4 up, then you're getting +1 to hit, and you're already AP 1. They're only getting a 5 up save anyway, if they've got. So I think it's pretty cool. Not many units, rank and file units, can actually take it. So don't be thinking you can have core units with this. Little tease there.
I mean, this sounds very kind of special.
It is special units. So don't think, blunderbuss, core, infernal dwarfs. No. This is special unit types. Right, so moving on to poison javelin. Now, I'm going to apologise right away. I think this is exactly what it used to be. I haven't seen the difference, but I haven't actually looked that hard. So, range 12, shots 1, strength as user, AP as user, poison attacks, quick to fire. I think it's exactly the same. So, apologies if I'm wrong. But that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And then, unless you've got anything to say about poison javelin, no?
No, this is a sharp intake of breath for the next one. Tooth and claw.
Go for it. It's all yours.
It's a close combat weapon, because no one likes teeth and claws being thrown at them.
No.
Two-handed. Attacks made with this weapon gain lightning reflexes and lethal strike this weapon cannot be enchanted.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
So at face value, okay, cool. I mean, lightning reflexes is a good rule. Lethal strike is a good rule. It's more the case of like, what has this?
Yeah. Yeah.
What has tooth and claw?
Mm-hmm.
And should I be worried about that?
Yeah. I mean, you know, when we were given this book as content providers, we weren't really told what we could and couldn't say. Our scripts are very loose, so you know, I think I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna say what's got it. Essentially, it's Kaiman's have tooth and claw.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when I say Kaiman's, there may be different types of Kaiman's.
Oh, you're really straight into the teasers now, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't, you know, hey, whatever. So yeah, lightning reflexes and lethal strike is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to talk about this rule on the unit entry that it's on. So I don't think we need to talk about it that much because I think that'll be the fun of the people talking about the unit. So I think we leave it there. Yeah. Do you agree?
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. It's something to bear in mind, and again, from what I understand, the sort of units you'd see it on changes up what they're capable of, I would argue.
Agreed. So then, hereditary spell for the Saurian Ancients. And
maybe up.
That time came along when the Saurians were given a magic missile, Spark of Creation, and considered Saurians were like, oh, we're the unloved child. All we get is a boring magic missile for our hereditary spell. And then, in time, we started to like that we just had a boring little magic missile. Because it wasn't a bad magic missile, and it was actually a really good utility. Because it meant you, in your other spells, you could take other things and still have a magic missile to fall back on. It's gone. And it's now Enlightenment. And I actually genuinely think we're going to miss Spark of Creation a little bit because it was a nice little extra to have.
So, Enlightenment. To read it, ironically, you might find yourself scratching your head a little bit to begin with, right?
Yeah, definitely would.
For a spell called Enlightenment, there's a lot of confusion to be had. But the more you think about it, I think the better you can start to figure out times you might use it.
Yeah.
You can cast it at 7+ or 10+. It's a 24-inch range. It's a universal 1-turn spell. And the target, and bear in mind it's universal, gains +2 discipline and suffers -1 to hit. If you supercharge it to 10+, you also get -1 to wound.
Yeah.
So, at face value, you might wonder what this spell is for.
Yeah, because it's good and bad, no matter which version you cast.
It's good and bad, yeah. So, either you're like you know having -1 to hit and wound on an opponent is great, but give them +2 discipline ?
Yeah.
But then also kind of anchoring one of your own units for +2 discipline, but making them hit less ? Like, I think the more you think about it, you can think of scenarios where you might end up using this spell.
Very much so.
I mean, there are some armies where giving them +2 discipline is entirely moot, so that's cool.
Vampires or Undying Dynasties.
Yeah. And if you've got, I guess sometimes, especially with some of the other rules, like the combined charge pack hunters, was it?
Yeah, pack hunters. That's right.
Sometimes, if you're setting up these kind of big combined multi-charges, sometimes maybe you just need your big bricks of infantry to hold for a turn, in which case the +2 discipline. And like we also know that generals, there's no general in the army, and like the discipline isn't stellar across the army.
Indeed, it's a big thing of the army now.
Yeah. So +2 discipline actually coming pretty clutch. 24 inches is a pretty respectable range as well, so it can be quite flexible with it. But yes, it's certainly an eyebrow raiser.
Definitely. And you know, if you find yourself casting it on your own unit, my big advice is don't boost it. Because there's no point in boosting it if you're giving the +2 discipline, because that is just silly. But if you're doing it on the enemy, then you know you can boost it if you want. But it's different.
I guess, giving. I suppose if you're giving your own units -1 to hit, you have got an army-wide rule where certain units can get +1 to hit against heavily armored units. Or you've got units that are re-rolling to hit because of a precinct. So is it the end of the world? Not necessarily.
If you get those combinations going, the -1 to hit you might not even notice. Yeah,
exactly,
because you've already got +1 to hit elsewhere, or re-rolls, etc.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think it's like the more I think about it, the more enlightened I feel. And I think what's kind of cool about it is that because you're not going to see it spammed in every game.
No, exactly. Yeah.
It might catch a few opponents with their pants down.
Yeah.
When
people might just let it off because it's not going to affect it as much as the opponent might fear.
Exactly.
So, yeah, great.
Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting. And I think very interesting is a good way for us to end this first day one hype, really. I've really enjoyed this, Skabfatt. Thank you for your time going through it. This is where our day one hype review ends, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. We are not authorized to scroll down any further. Other content providers will be doing so. And we'll try and get a list of who they are in the description, etc., so that we can point you to them. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of forum posts pointing you around to who's doing what as well. But hopefully PTG can be back for another review of a different section of the book later in the hype train.
Beautiful.
I won't promise whereabouts that is because it's all still being decided. Might be the core section, but we'll see. And also maybe we'll see if we can get Lucky Six's technical expertise back on board, because I do know that my technical expertise and my Wi-Fi not great. So if the audit recording of any of this isn't fantastic, it is my fault. And I apologise.
You can blame it on Cobbo. I mean, that's why he's employed.
Yeah.
To be the whipping boy.
Absolutely. I think so. And so on that absolute square blame, which is totally true, we will end our hype video. So thank you again, Skabfatt. Thank you to the rest of the world.
No, thank you for having me.
I think this is a really interesting book. I can't wait for you guys to see the rest of it. I can't wait to build army lists. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't already built 3 different lists. So yeah, we'll see how we go over the coming days. Thank you very much, everybody. See you for the next review.
Take care, everyone.